back to the What the Falk Sunderland preview podcast as we approach Saturday's game with Watford down south. Chrissy Rig, ole, ole, ole is the chant we've all been humming all week as the little wonder kid helped us make it 5 wins from 6. But can we make it 6 and 7 against an inconsistent Watford? As always, there's only one way to find out outside of actually playing the game, and that is by introducing one of my favourite guests that I have on every year when we play Watford. It's Peter from Do Not Scratch Your Eyes podcast. How are you doing? Are you all right?
Sir. I'm good, thank you. I'm good, but obviously inconsistent because, hey, it's Watford, so welcome to that. That's fine.
I would normally have loads to go through and would normally go back to the last league game, but we decided to delay this so we could discuss the last cup game. And I thought, brilliant, they're playing Man City, they're going to get absolutely thrashed. This is going to be awesome. They're going to be knackered, sad, 3 defeats in a row. However, you played all right, 2-1 for the people who didn't see it. Credit where credit's due. How was the performance?
It was a very good performance, bearing in mind we changed 10 players, I think it was. Might be wrong, might be 9, but it was the majority of the outfielders were all changed. And it was the response that you want from the club after the weekend's result, where we got basically, if you didn't see it, tonked 4-1 by Norwich, and that did not flatter them in any way, shape, or form. We were that bad. Genuinely, we were, and this was the first performance under Tom Cleverley that has been really, really needing a reaction, and it's really good and healthy that the others in the squad are, one, trying to perform, but secondly, trying to put pressure on those other ones who are in the starting lineup to try to do something. So yesterday, if you didn't see it, we had a goal disallowed for an almost identical challenge to the one that Erling Haaland did on Brighton, and was kind of waved through fine. A number of people have said, I can't understand why that was disallowed, but a disallowed goal at one of the big 6, go figure. So there you go. And it was a great performance. We went 1-0 down because we have been basically conceding a goal inside of the opening 4 minutes every single game for the last 5 games. And when it happened a couple of times, people started saying, is this a thing? And they were like, well, we're dealing with it, but in a way that doesn't kind of focus on it and make it a thing. Well, it's now 5 games in a row, so it's a thing. I think we can confirm that. But thereafter, the team and the individual involved in that particular issue was Ryan Porteous, who was the Scotland defender who basically kind of stamped on Gundogan during the Euros, and so he's had to be kind of mentally and emotionally unpacking that all summer, and he's not seemingly kind of got past it. His first 5 minutes yesterday made that just another chapter in a difficult time he's had. The next 85 minutes were him starting to rebuild his Watford career. I mean, he was outstanding thereafter, and the rest of the team were really good. They got a goal. It wasn't the greatest elements of defending or goalkeeping for their second goal, but the quality they've got. But thereafter, the second half, we are the first team, I think, in 2024 to go and win a half of football at Etihad. So okay, it's a single goal, and we got that. But for us, that was something. Bearing in mind they had, because obviously we changed that. Obviously City did as well, but their front 3 were Jeremy Doku, Foden and Jack Grealish, and at the back they had Kyle Walker, they had John Stones. They had quality all over the place and they played like it, but it is slightly different from their starting 11, but it was still a commendable performance, and really good to see the team and squad putting in a reaction to an underperformance last week.
I think when you play like Man City, I've seen the team and the names. I noticed the ones you picked out: Grealish, Stones, Walker, Foden, Doku. 3 of the 5 played in the European Championship final, and almost all of them played in the Euros at the latter end. And sadly, Jack Grealish didn't, depending on which way you swing. But it wasn't a full-strength team, but it was pretty solid. And I think the best you can sort of expect from Man City is not getting absolutely slaughtered, because they're arguably the best Premier League team we've ever seen.
You got to remember that in the last 16 games we've played them, they are just leading the head-to-head by just the first 16 of those particular games that they've won against Arsenal. When you remember that we got hammered in 2019 at the FA Cup final 6-0, which it was only the second time we've ever been. I know you guys have gone and won it in glories and 73 and all of that. Obviously, well done, etc. But It was only the second time we'd gone there. So at 5-0, all our flags came out and it became a real kind of bonding thing. So I know it sounds ridiculous, but when you see the supporters getting behind the team when they're being absolutely tonked to them, the Man City fans who were like, down at Wembley for the fourth time that month or whatever it was, are like, they're coming out and they're going, fair play, respect, because you got hammered, but you stayed together as a club and a team. It was something good, but since then we have gone on the nosedive ever since that particular moment, or really the semi final to that effect. But yeah, no, we owe Man City a couple of bloody noses. What year was it? I think it was the season we came down. So it was the next season we went up there and we lost 8-0 in the Premiership, and we were 5-0 down after 17 minutes. So whilst I'm sitting there going, yeah, we conceded another goal, a quick goal, they scored it in about the 4th minute. So, people were sending their guys socials saying, so how come it's taking you so long to score against us? Everybody else does it in the 2nd or 3rd minute, Take it when you can.
I hate to bring this up, but today, which is the 25th of September, it's the anniversary of our 8-0 defeat to Watford.
I was there.
I wasn't, thankfully.
Oh, well, yeah, no. 2 from Callaghan, 2 from Jenkins, and 4 from Blissett. And the ridiculous thing was Chris Turner was fabulous in goal. If Ali McCoist had scored a couple of his early chances, it could have been a very different game. But of course, we all know footage from those days. I mean, we still do have the footage from there, but it is like, kind of watching it through tissue paper. It was 1980s after all. But that was easily our greatest side ever under our greatest manager. And I appreciate Graham Taylor is somebody who in England will split the room because of the national team and what have you. But obviously for us, he is, I don't know what he is. He's, he's Stokoe and Superman rolled into one, so it was an amazing team. It was an amazing game. But I remember about 2 or 3 years earlier, us coming up to your place and you rolling us 5-0. And we remember it because it was Steve Terry who played in the '84 Cup final, and Kenny Jackett, who ended up becoming Steve Terry did as well, but a real bona fide, kind of 400 appearances plus legend, made their debut at Roker Park, and then came back because that was in the penultimate game, and then we came back and beat Burnley 4-0, and then their careers kind of kicked on. So no, big numbers between our teams either way have not been a thing that we have to wait too long to come around. I'm sure you'll give us a right hammering at some point, and hopefully vice versa. It's all good fun.
Hopefully Saturday. But the interesting thing is, because we obviously arranged these podcasts the week beforehand, and he said, look, can we do Wednesday? So I didn't know you were playing Tuesday. So I looked at your result of the weekend and I thought, who are they playing Tuesday? Oh, City. All right, okay, we'll probably get beat, but we'll probably have more to talk about, more interesting things from the league game. However, I did manage to catch the 4-1 thrashing at Norwich.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
It's strange if you get beat 4-1 at Norwich or 4-1 anywhere in the Championship and you go, right, we need to... I've seen Tom Cleverley said we want a game to get it out of the way. The game you would not want to choose is Man City away. But in a really weird way, last night's performance could be really big in the context of your campaign. I didn't think we'd be discussing that, but how big could last night's display be? Despite the fact it was a changed team, despite the fact you lost, and despite the fact it doesn't really mean anything in the grand scheme of things in terms of you progressing in the cup, how big could it be that you responded to arguably your worst performance of the season on paper?
It wasn't even arguably. It absolutely was the worst. We've had individual. We've only lost 2 games, but it felt last Saturday at about 2:30 because it was a 12:30 kickoff. It felt like an absolute implosion. Everybody at the club, bar probably the owner, because he's always, just a trigger, kind of finger away from doing something berserk. Tom Cleverley is at our club a genuine club legend, because we had him on loan in 2009 in the Championship when he was at Man United, etc. Came down, lit the place up, player of the season by a country mile. Couldn't believe we got him at that particular stage. And obviously he goes on and does England and league winning, kind of league winning. And okay, his career kind of went on a funny kind of you're not good enough for Man United trajectory thereafter. However, he then came back to us and he's played for us more than any other team. The thing that seemed apparent this season was that he got the last 9 games as interim manager when we were in mid-table, but we hadn't won since something like Boxing Day. With 9 games to go, I think we might have won 1, but if we had, Christ alone knows how we did it. We were absolutely just waiting for the rest of the bottom of the league to catch us up because we were doing nothing. We were absolutely all over the place. And he came in and he got a result against Birmingham, away, a 1-0 win. It was ugly. It was, kind of fighty. It was not pretty to look at, but he got that. Now, bearing in mind, we survived by 6 points. Even when he came in and then he only lost, I think one was at Middlesbrough and there was one other, I think it was. We obviously got a result against you guys as well, when we couldn't pick up anything really by that time, but we were sort of safe. We just acquired lots of draws and this particular win. But if you think about it, we were 6 points above Birmingham. You do the math. I had 3 of theirs, take 3 away from ours, and that game was pivotal. This season, we saw the transfer window not looking particularly good until about the last 3 or 4 days. And then we brought in some people who, for example, played last night for the first time in Angelo Agbona from West Ham, who you suddenly go, now that he could be the missing link in the back three that we've been needing, because he was calm, he was reassured. Festi Ebeselli, who went from Derby when they were, had Rooney in charge. He went across to Udinese, and we were all hoping we were going to get him straight away. It's taken 2 years, and we finally got him, which is lovely. So he made his first start yesterday, and did very well up against Grealish. Which is no small thing to achieve. I'm in that side of the camp, by the way, when it comes to Grealish. A fine player in my particular book, but. You pay your money, you take your choice. So there was answering your question, there was a number of really important players who could step forward. Nobody less so than a young lad called Kwadwo Bar, because with this unimpressive transfer window, what we did with the first 5 games of the season that we won, then we've lost, drawn, lost, and lost. But the last loss was, against Man City. We're not really worried about that. You can't count that any more than you can count pounding Milton Keynes Dons 5-0 in the first, kind of round of this thing. Is a lad called Kwadwo Bar. As I always say, my favourite Kwadwo, probably the only one I know, but never mind. He's a lot of fun, and we signed him from Rochdale about 2 or 3 years ago, and Watford have signed lots of players and then kind of put them out on loan. There's a whole player trading programme being part of this Udinese, the Pozzo family, as they call it, and being part of a multi-club kind of setup. He came in, and we'd signed him from Rochdale because he had failed a medical, ironically, at Manchester City. So you look at it in 2 ways. Well, why did he fail the medical? But if Manchester City wanted him, he must be good. Didn't seem to get anywhere at the time, but we come out of the Premiership. So our quality of individual player, I'm not going to say our team, but quality of individual player, he wasn't clearly above the threshold by one of the myriad of stupid managers that we've had. Because we've had many managers, but most of them have been not that great. Certainly not in our environment, at least. He's gone off on loan to Germany a couple of times. He's been in the Germany was it the under 17s or under 19s or under, youth football on the continent is massive in comparison to what it is here. So he went off to like Fortuna Dusseldorf and was in Bundesliga 2 and doing various things. And, the German national team kind of were keeping, or federation were keeping up tabs on him. He couldn't get a kick for us. He gets played in by Tom because he's got nobody else in early part of the season, and he looks terrific. He's absolutely, people are comparing him to, people like Traore at Fulham and previously, kind of Wolves, in terms of he's a tricky player who can go past people, but he's also, that universal weights and measures for anybody who's big and tricky. He's a unit, and he caused the Man City defence no end of problems yesterday. And as I say, he got the goal by basically, and I'm sure you guys will see it. Most people would turn around and go, prior to 2010, that was a shoulder barge. Now it's kind of, well, no, you can't do that because they're wearing pale blue and they've got Manchester City on the badge. So it felt a little bit, it's one of those. It doesn't matter. It was a heroic defeat. However, those 4 players, or those 3 players, in terms of Ogbonna, Festi Ebeselli, and again Kwadwo Bar, who's already done this, but kind of, he needs to push himself above the level of other players in there to get in there. We would be more than happy to see it. So I think, one, the message it sends to other players, which is don't rest back on your laurels and go and perform better, because against Norwich we were so far away from the performances that we put in previously. We would press high, we would be aggressive and on the front foot. And if anybody saw any of the Norwich-Watford game. I do apologise. I'm sure you can get the minutes back from the club somehow in your life, but it was just no. We weren't pressing at all. They got the ball for long periods, and we were just kind of jogging around the centre, not engaging at all. And it was like it was one where I looked at it and went, "Has the manager lost the dressing room?" And that was why yesterday's reaction was so important to me personally, because everybody has been playing for the manager, and this was the first time when genuinely we looked so bad it felt like they'd down tools. The response from yesterday and what we've heard about it since feels like they know they let him down and they need to go out there and correct it. So hopefully it'll be a game of two teams on form, because you guys undoubtedly are.
I want to ask you about Cleverly, because believe it or not, and actually this is probably more of a believable thing than an unbelievable thing in terms of the way Watford are set up. This is the first time we've done a podcast, and you've been on numerous times where the manager's been the same as the last podcast. That may be down to the fact that, the two podcasts are relatively close together, but I think he's had, I'm going by Wikipedia, this is as far as my knowledge goes, 18 games, give or take.
18 games, yeah, it will be. That will be it. Yeah.
He's just under 39% win rate. You touched on before how well he's liked as a player, and he came to the youth system and stuff like that. He's 35. I think he's one of the youngest, if not the youngest, managers in the league. Sometimes getting a club legend or someone who's very well liked doesn't always work out, but he's had a pretty decent start, like just under 39% solid. How do the fan base feel? Or are you so scarred from sackings on a whim that you don't get close to any manager? You just go, well, let's see how long he lasts.
The people who didn't want Cleverly in as interim or permanent manager didn't not want him because we don't like Cleverly. They wanted him because we like Cleverly and we don't want to see him discarded like all of the other, literally 22 managers under the current owner, right? Now, we as the podcast, and then got other podcasts involved, had a kind of a Q&A with the owner last year, and he hadn't spoken to the media or anybody for 11 years, and somehow we managed to snag this opportunity to talk to him. So I'm sitting there hosting it because I was the one who didn't move backwards when everybody was asked to move, take one step forward, and I was like, oh right, it's me then. But he was asked the question, bearing in mind he'd fired Rob Edwards, who then took Luton, our bitter rivals. Think about you guys and Newcastle, and okay, scale it down, but you're scaling it down by boiling it down. The intensity is absolutely still there at the same level, and he's gone up there and he's taken them up. Now, personally, I still think as a coach he's the emperor's new clothes. I genuinely do. However, that's not the point. He was the person. The question was put: if, as it was last season, if Valérien Ismaël has 16 points after 10 games, will you fire him? Because that's kind of where we were last time. And the owner went, can't say I won't, because he still maintains that the problem is that they still haven't got the right manager. Not that, and people turn around and say you're awful at firing managers. It's absolute rubbish. We're brilliant at firing managers. It's hiring them that we're rubbish at. World class at firing them. Honestly, we've got them on a conveyor belt. But it's just that's what he does. And that's why there's always this hesitancy about saying, well, some people didn't want Tom to do that because he was in the under-18 job. He was very early on. It's coming at him earlier than you'd expect. But he's worked under so many managers, and obviously everybody a little bit lazily, but understandably, goes to Ferguson and goes, what did you learn from there? But he was also brought up by Eric Harrison, who is like, the doyen of youth development in the north from, kind of the 80s through to the 2000s. He's also worked at Villa. He's worked at Everton. He's worked under a number of teams for good or for bad and experiences. He just looks like somebody who has walked in to the management game with 8 or 9 years of experience, and he knows how to talk to people. When we've had this plethora, call it what you want, of different managers, the amount of them who can actually talk and relate to the general supporter, I would say, is probably 2. Javi Gracia, who was with us for 2 years, he got a long service medal with his, when he finally got sacked after 4 games, and Nigel Pearson, who was sacked with 3 games to go because he came in and went, the solution is in this room when we were trying to keep our heads above water. We didn't manage it, but he didn't quite make it to the end of the season because, kind of Gino Pozzo decided, no, that finger's feeling trigger happy. So, we never find out quite what's behind all of these. Some of these may be legitimate, and some of them, to be honest with you, I would drive them to the airport myself. But it's sort of what it is. So no, I think he feels like he is a duck to water in this role, and you've seen a seriousness, if that makes sense, or a real focus in terms of what he talks about. But when he talks about the game, I'm sure you've had it. You sometimes have managers who, when you've just watched an absolute dirge, come out and try and convince you via the media and the cameras that you've just watched an excellent performance, and it's only a conspiracy theory the size of the Kennedy assassination that is stopping Sunderland currently being top of the league. And you're going, but we were shit and didn't have a shot on goal. And we've had literally dozens of those. Tom comes in and says that wasn't good enough. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. And when we have played, we've won first and second contacts, is his phrase for kind of first and second ball, as we would call it, maybe. And you go, he's watched the same game as us, and he's saying the kind of things that you want to hear and be relatable to as fans, because then you can be more forgiving. You can certainly be more relatable to what he's trying to do, and therefore to the players and the team. So, for example, Ryan Porteous, as I say, who's gone through a nightmare, obviously, in the Euros, and had a horrific back pass yesterday, and I would suggest, was the culpable individual for two of the goals at Norwich on Saturday, because his positioning was, well, shonky to say the least. Nobody's going to have a go at him. One, because we're Watford and we're generally fairly sort of a little bit placid. But the flip side of that is we don't get on somebody when they're having a really, really, kind of bad time. We'll be patient and be with them. So hopefully he can be like a number of people that, because of our proximity, we've taken a whole host of, battered players like Aurelio Gomez and Almunia and Capoue from they've been at Tottenham and Arsenal, and they've been treated badly, and we're like a kind of a little respite home. They come along and, oh, this is nice. People aren't shouting at me. No, because we're just amazed you're here and wearing a yellow shirt. Hopefully he will do that and be the player that hopefully he can be. So we'll see what happens. But no, I think the camp is all happy, but we're still just with a mind's eye to what's the owner doing at the moment. He's having to do very good things with Udinese because they nearly got relegated, and currently they're sitting kind of pretty much atop or very close to top of Serie A. So we're hoping he's looking over there and just letting Tom get on with the job. That would be nice.
When you talk about Porteous, it's got no relevance to the game whatsoever. But of course, I live up in Glasgow, and that's my job, is to cover former Hibs players, for example.
Yeah.
And I was at Download Festival for the first game of the Euros with my Scottish fiance, who said, "Do you mind if we don't watch Busted and we watch instead Scotland play Germany, just in case?" And I says, "Well, look, if you're getting battered by half time, can we please go and watch some bands, because I don't really want to watch Scotland. I'm not that interested at the moment because I'm at a festival." And she went, "Okay, but only if we're getting battered." So the first one goes in, the second one goes in. I'm thinking, oh, one more, and I'm going to go see some live music. And of course, Porteous puts a tackle in, and I'm sitting with a load of people who are Scottish. I would assume the kilts give it away, who all screamed bloody murder. It was never a penalty. And I'd seen the tackle, and I felt like I was the only man that's seen that Porteous had committed GBH on Gundogan. And the collective realization that he had committed GBH, and it wasn't just a penalty, I felt about 2,000 people simultaneously went, "It's never..." So thanks, Ryan Porteous. I got to see some live music when I possibly couldn't have done if you hadn't done what you did.
Porteous has got that rash moment in him.
Yes.
But he never hides, and therefore he's kind of, a lot of people, and the room, don't get me wrong, the room is always split when you're talking about games afterwards, because if he's caused it and we've lost by one, then of course people are going to, go on at him, etc. But I think the impact of that moment, and obviously doing that, and I don't think any of us can kind of appreciate, or hopefully very few of us, doing that and having the whole weight of the nation on you. Because in that 20 minutes, in those two, he seems to be, to me, I appreciate here we are, two English football fans talking about Scotland, but he seemed to be the only Scottish player intent on defending. And he was like trying to basically kind of, like covering all the holes that were kind of springing leaks in. And yeah, he's overstepped the mark on it, and it's one of those things. But he's never backwards in coming forward. He came out after last night and did one of the kind of the post-match interviews, which he could have quite easily ducked, and he didn't. And he came out and said, "Yeah, no, that one's on me." But in addition to that, I mean, he came on as a sub on Saturday, but still was, as I say, it was all a little bit all over the place, but everything was all over the place on Saturday. So we hope to see something a little bit more robust this coming Saturday, with players who should be fresh, but also should feel like they've got somebody actually in their rearview mirror that if they don't perform, he's going to be in your seat.
Looking at the players you brought in, there was a couple of names that stuck out. Some because we were linked to, some because they were our old rivals. Well, they never beat us, but nonetheless, they used to play on the team that we beat an awful lot. And one of them because of like my location, so I know a little bit about him. But I looked at Daniel Jefferson, who I think Sunderland fans were quite interested in seeing if he would come. He came in on loan after moving from Sheffield United to Bournemouth, and then on loan to get game time. Musa Sissoko, who I don't need to really introduce to a lot of people. And a lad called Rocco Varta, who decided to leave Celtic to sign for Watford for first-team football. So from what I've seen, there's more players than that. But it looks like a mix of young players with big pedigree, not just some, like big pedigree. And then other players who have been there, done it, bought the T-shirt, and kind of are on the wrong side of 30, but are going to add experience. What have you made of the business, and which ones have kind of shone so far?
Well, you've just picked out three great ones there. So, I mean, if we look at Daniel Jefferson, first of all, the jury is firmly out at the moment. And half of them are a hanging jury, basically, because he's only had 2 starts. One of them was it wasn't even a start. Sorry, he's had 1 start, which was against Norwich. And if you saw that, he missed a goal that was, when everybody turns around and says, my gran could have finished that. My gran could have gone and had a bite and come back and buried it if she really could have done. Because in the outgoing door was a gentleman I'm sure we spoke about last year, because we were all going, this makes no sense. We've signed this Danish guy called Mileta Rajovic, and he does nothing. He does absolutely nothing except for score goals. I mean, when you're playing in the school playground and there's one kid who does nothing but stand up front but just taps it in, he is literally that. But come out of the box anywhere, he's 6'3", but he can't play with his back to goal. There's no build-up play. We let him go back to Bromby, and we brought in Jefferson as a result. Now, people might not know, but Jefferson didn't play at all for Sheffield United last year because he had an illness. So he was out for a long, long time. A lot of the people who were in the hanging kind of side of it saying, look, he missed a chance against Coventry, Rajovic would have scored that. Well, of course, Rajovic would have scored that, because the player you haven't got scores every goal possible in your imagination. Chances are, actually, with the movement, Rajovic wouldn't have got there, because not only does he not do anything, he's not very quick either. And he missed that. It was an awful chance. And yes, as I say, my gran and indeed Rajovic, now at Bromby on loan, would have indeed scored those. So he's a bit culpable for that. He's got shocking body language. He came on for his first kind of bit against Cov. He did miss, an opportunity. He got there, but he just needed to kind of like get a flick with the outside of his boot. Good run to the near post. But he kind of like strode straight off, and it was like, right, he's one of those. And this is one of the big things that Cleverly has done to try to bring the crowd and the club and the team together. So I'm sure that'll be nipped in the bud. He just didn't really shake a leg, and he didn't really give us anything. He didn't give us any pace. He didn't give us anything on Saturday. But he'd played 2 substitute appearances of a total of about 25 minutes for Bournemouth, and he played 45 minutes against West Ham for Bournemouth in the League Cup the day before we signed him. It was almost like a fitness test. That was pretty much what it was. So he's got to get fit, because he's not been fit from last season. So we will see. But the jury is definitely out. The clever money is that he's very highly considered in the game. If you turn to Musa Sissoko, the last time we went down, he came in at the start of that season. He was one of these rehabilitation from Tottenham kind of guys. Obviously, I always liked the look of him, but he sort of played on the right a lot when he was at the Geordies. And then he kind of converted to central midfield, and he came in and he was the best of a bad bunch. But that's like being the best looking man in the Burns unit that year. We got absolutely hammered. And he went off because we got relegated to Nantes for 2 years, because there's a connection with his agent. We've spoken about the dodgy agent we've got connected to the club and the owner, I'm sure. And now we brought him back. But of course, we're a season, he's 2 years older, he's 34, 35, but he's in the Championship now. And other than last Saturday, he's been outstanding. He's not played in any of the League Cup games because they're sorting out what games he can play and what games he clearly can't. But he is, last Saturday he was an absentee landlord, so he's got to basically he can't dial it in. If you're gonna play only on the weekends, fine, but turn up on a Saturday. In terms of Rocco Vata, a lot of fun, a lot of fun. We got to interview Malky Mackay, was one of our former managers, players, youth team coach, cook, bottle washer, and he said, "Oh yeah." The first game question we asked was, we're supposed to have a game with you because of the Ryan Porteous, because he's technical director at Hibs. And he went, "Yeah, I've just been off the phone to Tom, and we're going to be having it later on in the, if you want to be my guests." So, well, we don't need a second invitation. So up we went to Edinburgh. That was a good night. And Rocco Vata was playing that game, and we came out and met his mum and his girlfriend after, who were very lovely and were, really happy that he was there. They were also probably happy because he'd spanked one in from about 25 yards. Really quick feet. Looks like he could be longer term, not a number 10, but he could be a number 9 because he's got a bigger frame than you imagine on him. He's got very good feet, very kind of quick to open up half a yard, and then at the start of this stuff, he would go to guns. He would shoot from literally wherever. Passing was not an option, and it feels when he got his first start against Norwich, and he was one of the good things. A lovely turn, and then he ended up hitting the bar with it, and then we scored from the resultant piece. He's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. The clever talk, or the cleverly, I should say, talk is he needs to work on his out of possession kind of work, because he's previously played for he played five times for Celtic A with a total of about 59 minutes, but one goal. Not a bad game to goal ratio, but he was playing for Celtic B, so he was playing in the various different kind of academic institutions of Scotland with kind of hammer cages behind the ground and a dog and nobody else watching. But he has been a lot of fun, and I think we will really like to see him. I would guess that he will lose his starting position after what Quadwo Bar did yesterday, because they're kind of competing for it, and we'll see. Previously, we're basically playing as a 3 at the back, 4 across the middle, 2 number 10s effectively, and a single striker. So that's how we sort of played, and really what the genius in tactical terms that Cleverly's offered us is because we've got this player trading idea, and everybody wants to get the skillful number 10 who can do good things and score goals, because centre forwards are just battering rams with back to goals. We've had a plethora of these number 10s, and everybody's insisted on playing them as like inverted wingers, and that's not what they are. And so by playing as this, with bringing them in a little bit more and more centrally, it means that theoretically, with the exception of Saturday, we can be a bit more dominant in midfield and get numbers around it and then break forward. And the player you've probably got to watch, because he came on in the last 15 or 20 minutes last night, is a guy called Georgi Chekfatadze, who was in the Euros for Georgia, that hard-working Georgian team. But he can basically pick up the ball and drag you upfield in a way, and I don't even flinch when I make this comparison. He's like a more skillful Steven Gerrard, in the way that Steven Gerrard would pick up the ball and just run and just drive and drive and drive. At the end, he's got a trick to beat somebody and to go to guns. I'm not saying he's Steven Gerrard, of course. Steven had a lot of other strengths, but it was, I could not think of any other player who can pick up the ball and relentlessly in a game take you 40 yards further upfield. He's really something to see.
Three more for you, technically, for including the predictions. We've been on TV quite a bit, which is annoying sometimes, but quite nice when you're playing well. We're obviously second in the league. We've only lost one game, and that was against Plymouth, and it was basically a 45-minute calamity. Everything else has been fabulous. Things are great in Wearside. What have you made of Sunderland start the season from what you've seen?
It's odd, isn't it? Lebris, I was really surprised he got the gig, because he was youth at Stade Rennes, who were very good at developing players, fantastic. Went to Lorient, had the same role for 3 or 4 years, got the B gig again, and only really performed in one of those seasons. But at that point, they decided to pump him into the first bit, and did well. But then his second year was shocking. And then you pick him up, and he looks great. So first of all, just exactly goes to show how much I know. So any of my observations here could be dealt with that. Rig, fantastic back heel, and he looks a lot of fun coming out. Obviously, we always still have a soft spot for Luke O'Nien, no matter what he does. But we really especially enjoyed the bit where he jumped on the Plymouth Players Black or whoever it was. That was good fun. So like him, and obviously everybody looks at Joby and turns around and I think it looks to me like he's coming into something this season, because I could be wrong, but he seemed to be he seemed to be kind of, right, we're going to play you up front. Now we're going to play you over here. Now we're going to play.
Yeah.
And he seems to be anchoring now and finding a role that he can actually become excelling in, rather than being a jack of all trades, pretty bloody good at all of them, as he was. But also, I'm just hugely admiring of anybody who's got that famous name and decides he's going to take his own route, because no, I'm not Bellingham, I'm Joby. Removes it. And I appreciate you might, sibling rivalries, you might want to do that for your own selfish, silly, pathetic reasons, but I don't get the idea with that kid. He seems to be his own guy. So no. I'm always fairly impressed with him. So yes, him, Mundle, that's it. Yes, thank you. They seem to be, kind of carving out chances, opportunities, and indeed more worryingly goals. I watched you guys at Portsmouth. Because I was on my sofa, which was relocated abroad temporarily for obvious reasons, and basically it was like the Portsmouth half time, lovely biased commentary, which is great because we all love to see it. They came out and went, well, if we get the next one, we can really be in this, and it was like third goal, fourth goal, there you go, good way, good night Vienna, and it felt a ruthless performance rather than a showy. It felt. This is a damning with faint praise kind of word. It felt like a really efficient performance, if that makes sense.
It does.
It felt like something that was industrializable, kind of repeatable, and it felt coached. And that's how I think you look, which is why, as I say, with Lebris, who I can't even pronounce, I looked at it and went, wow. The one observation I thought was, you've got Torup at Norwich, who's seemingly getting a tune starting to come out of them, as we saw last week. You've got Tom Cleverley. All of our coaching staff are all development coaches. You've got development coaches. It seems that with money pushing out of the Championship, what we're seeing a lot of is teams deciding that what they really need to have is coaches and managers who can not only improve the team as a collective, but also improve each one of those individuals as well. And it becomes an accelerator, you presume.
Got 40 seconds or so I'll push you for a quick prediction. Where are you going?
I'm in charge of our prediction league, and I never let anybody go 1-1. So just to irritate my colleagues, I will say 1-1.
I'm going to say 1-1.
Yeah, I think we have the capability. If you score in 4 minutes, we'll be very disappointed. If we get to 5 minutes, expect to see celebrations, because we've conceded so many. Trust me, it'll happen.
I'm hoping for more, but I don't know why. I just feel like a 1-1. But I hope not. I hope you have a horrible weekend, Peter, but it's nice to have you back.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Who else can I talk about 8-0 and Ali McCoist and get away with it? It's good stuff.